So I think it's important for us to talk about grief because we both have different perspectives on it, and we were on other sides of it.
Yeah.
And I think that someone that may be going through it right now, they may find this helpful.
Yeah.
Just getting both sides.
Yeah. I remember, do you remember when we first met?
Yeah.
So we met 5 years ago, or almost 6 years ago, and my dad was diagnosed with cancer. I was in PA school, you were in med school, and I think you met me at one of the lowest points in my life, honestly. I was going through a really difficult time with accepting the fact that my dad wasn't going to be in my life longer. He wasn't going to see my baby being born, or he wasn't going to see me walk down the aisle, or certain things that one should have their dad for, he wasn't going to be there. And that was something that I was trying to accept. But at the same time, I had so many emotions and I didn't know how to handle myself. You saw me. I was sad. I was angry. I was moody. I was tired. I just did not know how to handle myself because it was the first time where I truly felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And I couldn't picture my life without my dad in it, you know? And I felt like you saw a side of me that not many people see when you first get into a relationship. I feel like our relationship was created in a midst of a beautiful disaster, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was very interesting. And I felt like at that time, I felt like I wasn't even ready for a relationship, but I feel like you really supported me. You really got me through it. And the fact that you lived with us for like 2 months in and you got to develop a relationship with my dad meant the world to me. And you proposed to me in front of my dad while he was at the hospital. And that's honestly a memory that I will never forget. And it was so meaningful to me. And I felt like grief was just something is something that cannot be defined because everyone feels differently when they're grieving. And I think you saw that. I think you saw all parts of me when I was grieving.
Yeah. I know that people mention about like stages of grief and all that stuff.
There's no such thing as stages of grief.
And I think that, we realized, I realized, by seeing what you were going through as well, was just like, there's no such thing as stages of grief. Everyone is going to grieve in their own way.
Yeah.
Everyone experiences different emotions and different things trigger their emotions to come up. Like, yeah, people say, oh, grief can last 6 months or whatever. But I mean, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, from now, like there still could be things that, that trigger those emotions.
Yeah, of course.
And that doesn't mean that you're not over it. It's just a process. The whole thing is a process. And I don't know, like it was just interesting to see it
from a different perspective.
From a different perspective.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was a really difficult time for me, but I'm just thankful that, while my dad did leave, I gained you and we have this beautiful life. And now it's crazy because when I do think of dad, I do things to celebrate him. And I literally see glimpses of him in our son. And it just makes me happy when I think about him. And so if I were to, tell anyone that's grieving something, I would just say that whatever you're feeling right now is completely normal. It is okay to feel any way that you feel. I think grief teaches you life lessons as well. It teaches you who's there for you when you're feeling down and you're not feeling too well. You'll notice that people that you didn't expect to be there are there for you, and it'll really teach you resilience.
Yeah. And I think that the main message that we have for anything, that when we talk about mental health, it's just so important to not suppress emotions, because I think going through that process of emotions, like, given how complex it can be, when someone's going through grief, like it's important to experience each and every one of those in order to get you not necessarily like through that process, but to be able to cope with it.
Of course. Yeah.
And I think that's a huge thing that I noticed.
And I think one thing I've learned too, especially during that time, is vulnerability is a strength. I think it is so extraordinary when someone is able to share something that they've been through, because honestly, when people share something that they've been through, it helps me feel like I'm not alone.
Mhm.
And that's why I always encourage people to share their story, because you never know who you might help along the way.